Load a video here showing off how to install a secure idle. This here is a 2010 Crown Victoria. What the secure idle does is it allows you to start the car, push this button. Once you push this button, you can then turn the key off and take the key out, and then the car will stay running as you have the key in your hand. Then you can get out of the car, you can lock the door, you can do whatever you want. The car will be secured because you can't shift the lever without actually putting the key in the ignition and doing the whole thing again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to install this secure idle, but I'm not going to use the button that comes with it pre-installed, because for this button you would have to drill a hole somewhere here and it doesn't look very nice to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to let the secure idle work off of the traction control off button. Now on my car, since I'm in Texas, it doesn't actually have the option to turn off this traction control. A lot of the northern cars have it, just different places have it ordered, but it was a special option to be ordered from Ford. So pretty much like 95% of the CVPIs out there don't have the option to remove traction control. So this panel is actually a pretty rare panel. But what I'm going to do is make that button work off of this button so that I can just click this button, as you can hear it, and that will actually activate my secure idle, because the button itself doesn't actually do anything in terms of the car because there's no programming there or anything like that. So technically it's a worthless button. It is cool that it has both buttons, but technically it is worthless. So by adding the secure idle, I make it not worthless. So the first thing you have to do is you have to remove all of these panels underneath here. So first there's the panel there's the panel under the steering column, then you have the metal plate, there's a couple bolts that are holding all that in. Once you take all that off, you have this. So you might not have this green plug right here. This is a Tremco. That prevents your car from shifting from park unless you press the hidden button. But your car probably won't have that. It may have it, but probably not. So what you're looking for here is you're actually looking for this plug right here. So what that plug is where this secure idle plugs in here. So you unplug it here. You plug this side into the car, the steering column, and you plug this into the little plug. So I'm going to do that now. So as you can see, I unplugged this plug here from the car, and I took the secure idle and I plugged in the plug there, and then I plugged in the other end into that. So basically the secure idle is intercepting that plug. So you have two ends, two plugs, you connect them together. The Tremco over here works the exact same way. You unplug the portion from right there, and then you plug in the Tremco, and it intercepts the shifting mechanism. So it's the same idea, it's a plug-and-play setup. The only other thing that you have to do is you have to connect this ground wire. So you can connect this ground wire to anything that you want up under here. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the ground wire right in between this. I'm going to take off the little end. Let me do that real quick. So I'll just have an exposed wire. What I've done is I put one of these little ring connectors here onto the grounding cable. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it right up here. And when I put the panel back on, the screw and all that is going to hold that grounding piece onto the metal there. So that will serve as my ground. I don't need any extra holes drilled or anything like that. So then the last thing you have to do is figure out your button. So like I said, you can drill a hole, you can put a hole here, you can put a hole on the other side, you can put a hole like in the plastic piece down here, you can put it, you can put this wherever you want. I unfortunately don't really like the way that this looks. I think it looks tacky, so I'm going to put it on that button like I described earlier. So let me get all that apart and then I'll show you the process of doing that. Once you take the panel off, you'll have two plugs here. One of them goes to the pedal adjust switch. Now my car does have the adjustable pedals, so this button does actually do something. So I'm not going to be messing with that because that's just a factory feature. This blue plug is the one you're looking for. So the blue plug is the one that goes to the traction control button. Again, on my car, it doesn't actually do anything, so this plug is pretty much worthless. On the original panel that was here, this one was just plugged into a blank place on the panel. If you plug in the switch, you're not going to be able to just add traction control. Same thing with the pedal adjust. You can't just add that on by just putting the switch. The wires are there in all the cars, but you know, just adding the switch doesn't do anything. You actually have to have like the mechanical motors and all that. You have to switch your whole pedal assembly if you want the mechanic or the automatic pedals. It's not that hard to do, but you do have to do it. You can't just plug in the plug. Same with the traction control. The traction control requires a different ABS module. It requires different PCM programming. It requires different things. So just having that button there, not going to do you any good. So now let me take this apart, because what you have to do is you have to take off this white piece. Because what you're actually going to do under here, now the wire colors may be different on your car because different years are different colors. So if you see here on the right, there's a gray plug and there's a red and a yellow plug. That's number 1 and number 2. Those are the things you want to remove from the car itself. So you want to take this white piece off here. You just kind of pry it off. You see on the edge here. You basically just put like something sharp in there to kind of get it off. And once you get it off, you'll have access to removing these wires. I'll show that once I remove them. You can see that I've gotten the white piece pretty much out. And what you can do is you can just pull it out. So this piece comes out. You'll want to save this piece because you're going to put it back in. So once you do that, you can look inside here and you can see, it's kind of hard to see because my camera won't focus, but you'll see there's like a little piece of plastic that's holding those wires in. So you want to use something really thin and sharp to go in there and kind of pry those plastic pieces back and pull the wire out from this side. So I'll do that now. You can see that I have pulled the 2 wires out. There's one here and one there, both with the little copper tips on them. So with these wires removed, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape them up with some electrical tape. That's going to prevent these wires from touching each other or touching anything else in the car. And it's not going to mess up the plug at all. If I ever want to remove this and go back to just a standard, this option, if I want to completely remove it from the car, I would pull the wires out that I'm going to add, and I can just plug these right back in, and there's no modification whatsoever. So now what I've done is I've taken this donor piece. This donor piece is from a junkyard car. It's the exact same piece as you see right there. Has the same wires, except I have pried out the 2 wires that I need, and those wires are here. So as you can see, on my car, the wire is actually red and yellow and gray. Whereas on the plug that I got from the donor car, it's actually a gray and a black wire. So again, different gears, different color wires. The color of the wires doesn't matter for the donor car. Those specific wires, you need pin 1 and pin 2 removed. Those are the 2 that you're going for. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these 2 wires, and on the back side here, I'm going to slide them into the relevant position after I tape up those other wires. So now as you can see, I have taped up the other 2 wires. They're both taped up there, so they're not going to touch anything. They're taped up separately and then taped together. And then what I've done is I have these 2 wires with butt connectors. I have them inserted in there. They're secured in there because they locked in there because they're the original OEM wires. I put the little like cap thing back on. It's secured in there. And now I have these 2 wires. So theoretically, what this is this is ground and 12 volts. So you have 2 different wires. So on this plug, you have the same thing, 12 volts and ground. So what you're going to do is cut this like right here so you leave enough for the switch. And you're going to wire them into those 2. So red is going to go to the gray, black is going to go to black. And once you do that, that's it. Your switch, your button, will now be on this button up here instead of this. And then if you want to completely remove this mod, all you have to do is take that little white piece off there, pull out your 2 wires, which will then come with this, and then you can unwrap those from the tape, slide those back in, and then you have an original plug, and you can remove this mod from your car. So I'm going to go ahead and wire this up, and then I'll be back. Just as a final shot here, I'm putting some wire loom on it, so you can see there, so it goes up in there, but the wire loom will protect it from chafing on anything. And then I've just, you know, electrical taped it together, and then I have all the wires and all that here. So now I just have a normal plug, looks like that, and now I'm going to put this panel back on. Panel's back on, everything is, you know, factory here. I do have the switch wire in the loom here, and then now when I put all of this back together, I'm going to zip tie this stuff like up in here so that it's kind of out of the way, and then you just have your ground connection here. Again, I'm going to put that on the screw there. So once I put this panel back on, I'll come back. Alright, so as one final update before I put the total bottom panel back on, as you can see, the module is there. I have it zip tied so that I can easily remove it if I don't like it for any reason. It's not going to go anywhere. See, it's like extra secure because it's zip tied to this panel right here. And then on this screw right here, I'm not sure if you can see it, but this is where I mounted the negative to. You can see it right there. Basically, it just goes into that screw, which is touching metal to metal. Everything is grounded properly. So now just to clean all of my mess up and put everything back together and test it out. And now we're in the car. So as you can see, I have the key. I'm gonna put the key in the ignition, start the car up. Car starts up good. You can see the traction control light lit up. That means that all the wiring to this button is still active. However, clicking it doesn't do anything for the car. Now listen real closely. You hear that click? That click is the secure idle. So as you can see, the car is still running. I have the key here. I'm gonna turn it off. The car's still running. So with the key in my hand here, I'm gonna try to shift by pushing the brake. Nothing happens because there's no key, so I can't shift. Now I have a Trimco installed. Let me try pushing the Trimco. Okay, no shift, no shift. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the key back in the ignition and I'm gonna turn it back to run. Now the car's still running normally. Now I'm gonna try to shift. I can't because the Trimco's there. So Trimco, shift. Shift to drive. Drive normally, however you want to drive. Get to where you're going. Put it in park. Turn the key off. Car goes off. Button's still there. So that's how secure idle works, and clearly it also works with the Trimco. No problem. You can have both active at the same time, and they work just fine. So this has been a tutorial from Jono. Hope you liked my video. Subscribe to my channel if you like. I might post more Crown Vic stuff, but I really follow me on Instagram. That's where you'll find most of my content, Jono.CVPI. I'll put a link in the description as well, so if you want to follow my content there. It's mostly Crown Vic stuff, but there are some other police interceptor, PPVs, different police stuff there. So I'm not a cop, but you know, I like the old cars. So check me out there if you like. Thanks, guys.